Good Yom Tov, everybody. L'chaim, l'chaim. Welcome to Torah Or Project for Hey Tevis. We will be learning the second Mayim in Parshas Noach on page 18 of Torah Or. I would like to dedicate this class in honor of Le'ilu Nishmas, Sarah Koifman's grandparents, whose names are Genya Bas Velvel and Velvel Ben Label. The Neshama Shevan Aliyah, and may our learning bring them tremendous joy on high. Additionally, it should be a refuah shlema for Yafa Bas Zimra, that she should be fully healed. Beramach Evareha Veshisa Gideha, and a Shidduch Amiti, Zivug Amiti, for Yosef Yitzchak, Ben Regina Malka, and Binyamin Baruch Ben Rachel. This will be for eternity and posterity. L'chaim, l'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai. L'chom sha'akol yom Baruch. So we learned the Mayim Rabim, one of the most famous Mayim of the whole Torah Or. Now the Alter Rebbe has a biur on it. This is going to be the elucidation of that Mayim Rabim. In general, the elucidation of any Mayim will be much more Kabbalistic, much more esoteric and mystical. So bear with me when it comes to those terminologies that we'll try and decrypt. But you'll see that there's a certain nuance or kvetch that the Alter Rebbe emphasizes here in this Mayim. And I refer to anybody that didn't learn the Mayim Rabim, that we have it recorded, Baruch Hashem. And I would like to thank Shner Zalman Gordon for being so dedicated to us every single week and making this available and accessible to the world. Okay, without further, yes. No. It's in and of itself. Yeah.
But I recommend going back.
Yeah. It's definitely a good stepping stone to enter into this, but this is the concepts here will be appreciated, and also, again, there'll be new concepts that wasn't discussed there either. Okay, so without further ado. Biur Al Mayim, an explanation of the above-mentioned Mayim. So just to quickly summarize, the powerful contribution of Mayim Rabim, of this Mayim, was, and relative to the time that it was said, and surely even now, is that the working individual, the working man or woman who's in the world, not only has the opportunity to transcend certain holy limitations because they're in the world, but on the contrary, this is even more valued than the Yoshev Oil, than the individual who's sitting and learning all day. And this may seem cliche to us because we live in this time now and we're like, okay, obviously, but this was absolutely revolutionary at the time, especially in the contribution of the Baal Shem Tov. And to put it on a more profound perspective, the Yoshev Oil represents the energy of the tzaddik, the individual who is spiritually flawless, versus the Baal Tshuva, whose energy is filled with flaws, and nevertheless there's an appreciation, as the Zohar says, Bechele Yasir, that because they're so distant, they work harder, they work more diligently to and appreciate the closeness or the limited closeness they have with Hashem. So because their closeness only happens at certain times, it's certain glimpses of their soul, or as the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that sometimes the Beinani during davening can achieve the impregnation of a tzaddik soul in their psyche, which is a wild and powerful idea. But the idea for the layman or woman is that sometimes we have almost like I want to say out-of-body experience, but something that is supernatural or beyond our regular, normal life experiences. And we can say that that's really an expression of the yearning of the neshama, but can we hold on to that? And the question is, are we meant to hold on to that? Or is that fleeting spiritual experience meant to be fleeting for the sake of us coming down and becoming retethered back into the creation. And so the emphasis of the Maimer is that no, Mayim Rabim lo yuchlu lechaves es ha'ava, that the many waters cannot extinguish the love, meaning to say that it's specifically through the many waters that we're able to experience this tremendous love, but a love that is called b'chol ma'idecha, a love that is with your everything, with the totality of your being, which includes your darkness in addition to your light. Because if it would be only limited to the light-filled experiences and the righteous experiences of life, there would be a limitation to that holiness. But specifically because there's a chaos, there's a disorganized, very tangled energy that we're involved with, in which our initial reaction is, this is not godly, this is not holy, this is not sacred. And almost like the godly soul is saying this is a godless world. This is where the Maimer hits home, because it says in that location and in that space, that's where Hashem is revealed in an even deeper way. As we mentioned almost every single class, to the Vayihi Erev Vayi Boker Yom Echad, that it was evening and it was morning, one day. Not only one day, but the energy of oneness is specifically because Vayihi Erev Vayi Boker, because there was evening and there was morning. So we cannot divorce or detach the negative Mayim Rabim experiences of life. On the contrary, this is where our Teva, which we mentioned, the idea of the Teva, is not only a physical ark, but also Teva from the word Rashi Tevot, the words of davening and learning, specifically through the struggle, specifically through the agony and the pain of life, as difficult as it is, will propel us and catapult us to an even deeper place than we can ever imagine. This was a synopsis of the power of the Mayim Rabim. So in this, the Alter is going to begin. We started with a premise. What's the premise? That the working person's prayer is on a greater, deeper, more profound level than the person who is luckily dedicated to learning and davening all day. So now because of that premise, the Alter says lahavina inyan. We have to understand, how can we say such an audacious thing? Tzarich love, we have to understand. Focus, sleep. Tzarich love, we have to understand in Yeridus and Neshama shehiya in hanitzat zelukus be'elam hazeh beguf ha'nefesh b'hamis li'es taru tamid b'machshavas v'daigus ha'parnas b'hevlei ha'olam hazeh. First, we must preface the idea of the whole purpose of the soul's descent into a body and an animal consciousness. What is the soul? It's a spark of godliness that has now plummeted into this physical world. But it's not only plummeting into the physical world. Rather, it becomes obsessed and almost addicted to the machinations and the various thoughts of trying to make a living, and also the vanities of this world. And this is extremely difficult for the neshama, because the neshama has a vision of truth, and as long as it has a vision of truth, it's befuddled. How can we, the consciousness of the person, be so dedicated to something that is so untrue? This is a tremendous descent. Therefore, we're obligated to say that this descent is for the sake of a subsequent ascent. That there's something about this descent, or I'm going to use the term a blindness, right? That the neshama has to now be muted or blinded, that it can't see the truth of the world. That there's something about the alma de shikra, something about the falsity of the world that is going to then propel it to an even deeper place. What happens? What exactly is achieved as a result of this descent and enclothing into the soul, into the body, and into the animal consciousness of the person? This enables the soul, specifically through the animal consciousness, to ascend by way of this mechanism called ahavta, this mechanism called love. You should love, but not just a regular love, rather with all your everything. Shul bligvul. Now, I'm going to say this in what it says in other Maimarim, and we discussed this before. The idea of me'oidecha, with all your everything, is the same letters as Adam. Adam means the human being. It's the first man, but it also represents the human structure, or in general, the design and structure of creation of Ishtalshalus. So Adam, for example, is head, torso, and feet. That's how the human being is structured. And so therefore, Kabbalistically, when you say the term Adam, you're not only referring to Adam, us, humanity, you're referring to anything that is an expression of the godly light that is already in the finite, limited structure. That's called Adam. So for example, Adam euphemistically is Atzilus Bria Yetzira Asiya, the four worlds or experiences of spiritual consciousness or worlds. That is also an Adam. The fact that you could say Chachma Bina Das, Chesed Gvur Tiferes, Netzach Hod Yesod Malchus, that's all Adam. There's a certain structure, a delineation, an organization, a format. This is called Adam. Because the human being is designed in this very structured way, we're using that as a euphemism to express the general structure of creation. Does this make sense? Now, the same letters, Adam, has the same letters as Me'oid. Me'oid means everything, a lot. So that Me'oid is the reversal of the Adam. So therefore he says, Shehu bli gvul, which is unconditional. Adam at the end of the day, which is the regular delineated structure of creation and the human being, can only reach a certain place. Whereas there's something miraculous almost, godly, this infinite power that is experienced by the reversal of man, by the reversal of the humanness. And this is called the bli gvul, which is a love of bechol me'idecha, a love with all your everything. Now he's going to explain what that is. Mayim Rabim, our sages say, Toiv ze malachayim, me'oid ze malach hamavis chuli. When Hashem creates the world, He describes every day as toiv. Except which day? No, Tuesday's toiv twice. So except which day? Monday. Monday didn't get a toiv, right? Because Monday was just the beginning. I don't think it doesn't say toiv by Monday. But it skips Monday, and then it says toiv me'oid by Tuesday. Okay? So now, he says that the description of every day being described as toiv, that's called malachayim. That's called the angel of life. That means to say that the angel that gives life, what is an angel? So a certain energy, power that Hashem institutes into creation, that is the life force and the life-giving waters for creation. This is described as good. Very good. Very good. Zemalach hamavis. That's the angel of death. Oh, Monday. Yes, Monday's tough. Even the Torah says it wasn't. Doesn't describe it as good. So you have toiv and toiv ma'od. When it says toiv ma'od, very good, this is a reference to the angel of death. What an extreme saying. How can we say this? Because there's something about the fall. Let's not use the term death, even though it is malach hamavis. But there's something about the fall, the descent of what this malach is meant to do in the world. There's a certain power, energy, force in the depression, in the gravity. And this is specifically plugged in through the love that is cultivated from the animal consciousness. As we see down here below. Physically speaking, the power, the brute force of an animal is greater than the normal force or power of a human. Why is that? So too up above, in the divine realms, or on a spiritual, psychological level, Amar Azal, our sages say, the Baal Tshuvas are like animals. What does that mean? The place that a Baal Tshuva stands, tzadikim chuli, he doesn't end off. But it says, tzadikim gurim eino yechelim lamed. A complete tzaddik cannot stand there. Now again, we have to just note that we're not referring to the colloquial term of Baal Tshuva, a person who didn't grow up religious and now became religious. It's definitely included in it. But the classic terminology, yeah.
We never said higher or lower there. We just said different.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah. That's. But look what he says. But the Zohar says higher.
Oh yeah.
what does high low mean? We'll get into that. But before, to just expound on this idea, that the power of the Baal Tshuva, again, not the colloquial term Baal Tshuva of a person who didn't grow up religious and then became religious, but a person who at any point felt like there was some type of diminution or fall or lapse in their avodas Hashem, that itself requires tshuva, that requires a certain mending, fixing, healing, etc. And therefore there's a certain force or power in that depression, in that gravity, in that being pulled downward, that Hashem says the glory that you're experiencing is right now on a place that a tzaddik gomer cannot stand. Why is that? Is because, like the Zohar says, that the Baal Tshuva has achieved a higher level. That's what the term means. A higher level, or like Eishes Chayil, like a greater valor, a greater force, a greater power. And with this tremendous force and power, is because the impetus for this insane, intense, dramatic love is coming from the animal soul, stemming from a world called Olam HaToyu. Okay, and with this the Mayim begins its Kabbalistic description. Okay, but until now it should be all familiar. Yeah.
I don't like that Ma'id is Adam and Ma'id is death. Like, please sort that out. Like, what am I?
Me'oid is not Adam. It's the inverse. It's the inverse. Adam, you'll say, is alive. Me'oid is that the love is so intense that I'm willing to die for it. Which, by the way, in other Maimarim, we give the example of Elazar ben Durdaya, the ultimate classic Baal Tshuva, right? That had his whole entire story. And it says that he cried to the heavens, cried to the mountains, cried to the hills, cried to the sun, the moon, and they all gave another pasuk that said, we can't help you. We're also fallible. We also have faults. Until it says he placed his head between his knees and cried himself till he passed away. Kloisa nefesh. Okay? So that's called the me'oid, right? So again, we're thinking Malach HaMav is like, your time's ready to come. No, we're saying that there's something extremely profound in the lapse, in the lacking. Now again, we're not blessing that anybody should chas v'shalom pass away because of the need for teshuvah. There are instances, like for example, the famous story of the Ramban's prime student, Reb Avner. Rebbe has a whole entire sikha about this. He did some interesting things on Yom Kippur in front of his rabbi. So, for example, the way he did tshuva is by fulfilling what the pasuk says about him, that he should be like obliterated from the world. So he took a boat and he just nobody heard of him anymore. A Baskol came out and said, Reb Avner, right? So the Rebbe says that's how you know that the Yid never is pushed away endlessly, because it said Reb Avner. And the same thing I believe about Elisha ben Avuya also. Acher, it says that one of the ways we discussed this, one of the ways that he knew that he's not able to do tshuva is specifically because he heard a Baskal that says that Acher is not everybody that Chutz me'acher, right? That a Baskal came out and said every day Shuvu banim shoivevim, right? Children return to me, Chutz me'acher. You remember the vart on that, right? Chutz me'acher means no. Your acher, that which you see yourself as an external, superficial part of yourself, chutz should go away. We want the internality, but he didn't hear that. So now we're saying a little bit of the same thing. That there's a certain power that I explained a little bit, Adam Me'oid. It's meaning to say we all have both elements. We have the Malach Chayim and the Malach HaMavis. We have the darkness, we have the light, we have the animal consciousness, we have the godly consciousness, we have the tzaddik, we have the Baal Tshuva. And we vacillate between the two. And that's why life is so fun and so draining at the same time. So here he's saying, the Alter Rebbe is saying that the power of the Baal Tshuva specifically comes from the animal consciousness that comes, or that originates in the world of Toyu. What is this world of Toyu? Okay. Beautiful. Very good. Yeah. It's interesting. It says Elazar ben Durdaya. What's Durdaya mean? You know? You know. You can say. Durdaya, what's durdaya? Is an Aramaic term. It's when you make wine, right? The sediment, the dregs, the leftover. That's what durdaya means. So you have in his name, right, that there's Elazar, means the helper of God. Ben, the son of. Then in order for him to achieve a certain alignment or reconnection to his deeper self, durdaya has to become like sediment, a leftover, or that the leftover sediment that we become so obsessed by and so connected to, we have to now say, okay, that was this lifetime, but what can we grow from that? And then we say toiv me'oid. So let's see, what is this world of toyu that the animal consciousness gets this power or energy from, that is able to propel it to places that are higher, deeper, a more profound godly experience than the godly soul on its own. So we have a pasuk from the end of Parshas Vayishlach ve'elam lachem asher malchu v'chuli, and these are the kings that ruled. These are speaking about the chieftains of Esav, in which it says, I think the pasuk says 8 kings. These psukim in the Torah and the end of Parshas Vayishlach are describing these divine realms called Toyu and Tikkun, translated roughly as chaos and order. It's written, in which the kings ruled before the Jewish kings. So we're emphasizing that there's a certain power, a certain hakdama, certain precedence that the chieftains of Esav had over, meaning to say, on a practical sense, on a what's the term? On a geographical sense, right? We're speaking about the location of Eretz Yisrael, Canaan. So the pasuk says, Asher malchu lifnei melech melech livnei Yisrael, that these chieftains of Esav ruled in this geographical location prior to the children of Israel. Okay, so geographically speaking, meaning the pasuk is referring to just teaching us geography and a certain chronology of who's ruling where. But spiritually speaking, we're saying there's a certain lifnei, there's a certain hakdama, there's a certain prioritization and preceding that the energy of Toyu, that the kings of Esav have over Tikkun, over the children of Israel. Olahavin calls that. How do we make sense of this? Hine Isa Medrash, it says in Medrash, a very famous Medrash. Betchila Allah b'machshava liver Yisrael b'midas hadin ra shein ha'ila miskayim shehis shita midas harachim yicholi. At first, it arose within Hashem's thought to create the world with a feature of judgment. He saw that the world would not be able to stand, to remain. So therefore, he partnered with this characteristic of din, midas harachamim, the midah of compassion. What was the issue? So how do we read this? How do we read this chazal without chassidus? Hello? Oh. How do we read this? Let me read this 1 second. That at first Hashem wanted to what? Create a world with strict judgment, and everything's going to be very, very exact and demanding and rigid, right? So we're like, oh, you know what? The world can't stand it. We all hate Gvura, right? We don't like when our parents are screaming at us. So like, no, Hashem, that's already too many rules, right? So Hashem did a kindness for us, and he saw that the world couldn't stand. So Shita midas harachamim. So he blended together a compassionate, a spirit of compassion, and therefore what happens? Okay, you can survive. So therefore you can do bad things and basically be okay, stay alive. This is the cursory reading of this medrash. So the Alter Rebbe explains, no. People read it, this medrash, as that the world I'm sorry, not like the world thinks that Shemidas Hadin. How do you translate the attribute, the characteristic of judgment? Hashem wanted to create the world with din. He wanted to create the world with rigidity, with a certain judgmentalism. That the second that you are out of line, I'm going to rebuke you. That's how we learn the Medrash. So that represents the idea Kabbalistically as tzimtzum u'minias hashpa, a condensing and an obstructing of flow, a spiritual bounty that the world is lacking. Meaning to say that there's a certain like, it's almost like you tell your parent, like trying to remind them, well, how were you like at 16? Yeah? And you try and evoke in them, by reminding them about themselves, Amidus Harachamim, because they were much worse than you at 16. Yeah? So as long as they're in with Midas Hadin, they're judging you. So you're like, okay, think about me. Yeah, I know I did wrong, but also think about yourself and try and evoke a sense of compassion. Okay? Yeah.
I know it's not exactly what the Mayim is about, but why does Hashem need to have gone through that process of coming from Biur to Parshas?
It's exactly what he's addressing. Very good question. Rivka's asking why it seems so futile that an infinite God needs to recreate the world, right? Or like he couldn't see lechatchila that it wouldn't work with midas hadin, so just go for midas harachamim lechatchila, right? Obviously, there's a certain bedrock, a certain foundation that the world needs to be structured first. And it was structured and molded in a certain way called midas hadin. And then he saw that the midas hadin wouldn't last on its own, so he blended with the midas harachamim. But there's he had to start it that way. Not he had to, but he wanted to.
So why couldn't that have just been like the process? Like,
It was the process. It was.
But you said that he saw that it couldn't.
That's part of the process. That's exactly part of the process.
But that makes it sound as if he didn't foresee that to begin with.
This is part of the foresight. We're going to see. Let's see. Let's see. It's not like the world thinks that the attribute of judgment is with a withholding of benevolence, of energy. When we read the word midas hadin, according to the Alter Rebbe, he says midas hadin is also one of Hashem's features. And if it's Hashem's features, then it also is an expression of power, of might, and a certain infinite point. Can I ask somebody? Sorry to interrupt. Can we turn this off, please? I'm sweating. Here, the thing is right there. Yeah, right there. Thank you so much. I took one for the team, yeah? I was like, it could be the tea, but I don't think it's the tea. Thank you. That the feature, the characteristic, the midah of gvura, of might, of discipline, of control, however you want to describe it, is one of Hashem's attributes. Like it's written, Lecha Hashem Agdula v'Agvura, that to you Hashem is greatness and is power. What does it mean to you Hashem? To you Hashem meaning to say that as infinite as we perceive chesed is as infinite as gvura is. We think of gvura as withholding, as blocking. We don't realize that the greatest expression of chesed is gvura. And that's what he's going to say. You're mistaking the medrash by saying, oh, his attribute of discipline, of control, and of withholding is what he intended the world to be created with. No, he's saying on the contrary. The world was created with chesed. And the chesed expressed itself as midas hadin. Because when I pour too much water into this cup and it overflows, is that chesed or gvura? It's a good question, no? Huh? It's seemingly chesed, but you broke me, right? You broke me. You killed him with kindness. So therefore, Hashem initially wanted to create the world with midas hadin. But what aspect of midas hadin? It seemed only from the vantage point of the recipients of the world that it's din. But really it was chesed. So let's see. These are one of the attributes of the world of Atzilus, the world of unity. in which is enlivening and bringing the world into being from non-existence to existence. So behold, it's written, Ki Adam wa nefesh, for the blood is the soul. She'ikir chayus ha'adam hu hadam, that the primary vitality within a person and what distinguishes a person, a human being, versus a corpse is the flow of blood. V'dam, what is blood? Nimshach mi b'chinas gvura midas hadin. So that which is giving us life is really coming from what attribute? Gvura midas hadin, the attribute of din. So we're misunderstanding the whole notion of din. When the Medrash says Hashem initially wanted to create the world with midas hadin, we're translating that as He wanted to create the world with discipline, control, and withholding. We're not translating it correctly. Rather, we're saying that what? That just like blood and the circulation of blood through the body is an expression of gvura, that this is the heartbeat, the defika de liba, the knocking of the heart, that is causing the life to actually exist in a person. So therefore, don't translate the term midas hadin as the attribute or the feature of judgment, of control, of withholding. Rather, translate it as that midas hadin is gvura. What is gvura? Gvura from the word gibor, right? An awesomeness, a might. Lashon tigboiris, an overpoweredness. That the power and might and force and life force stemming from the infinite one, from Hashem, is coming in an overflowing way, from the level of chesed, that is being drawn down very, very low. But, I'm sorry, I misread. Let's do it one more time. Chesed by itself alone is drawn down very, very low, but it comes in a cold way. What does cold mean? That there's almost like you can receive it still. Which is not the case by gvura. That gvura, the power, the awesomeness, the might, is causing that infinite light and vitality to not have any boundaries. And when it doesn't have boundaries, the recipient cannot receive it. The whole notion of chesed is that my recipient can receive it. Hashem created the world with midas hadin, but not midas hadin withholding. Midas hadin with an overwhelming amount of light. Now read the Medrash. He created the world with an overwhelming amount of light. He saw that the world couldn't survive. So shitaf boy midas harachamim. He melded together with that a feature, a characteristic of harmony, of blending. Of balance, of compassion. Yeah. That's what he just said. Look at a few lines before. Not in this Mayim he's translating it differently. Which is not the case by gvura. That this gvura is really a chesed that has no boundaries. Oh, now we understand. Hashem wanted to create a world that mimics and reflects and echoes His infiniteness. And being that it reflects His infiniteness, what will happen? What will happen? What will happen if we spoke about this mashal before. The idea, we spoke about this mashal before. Yeah? Imagine, one second. Imagine if all of our memories of our life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, happen right now in this room. Right now, of all of us. Okay, so there's no more shiur, and all the therapists need to come in, right, and deal with a lot of issues. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we're very blessed. Okay, why are we not all freaking out right now? There's one simple word, the most overused word in psychology today, right? Boundaries, yeah? Because our minds and our hearts are able to discern between the trauma of what existed subconsciously and where I'm located right now consciously. This is called shitaf boy midas harachamim. Okay? This is called the harmony and the balance on a psychological level. Whereas an infinite being, now again, I'm not speaking about God per se, but an infinite being and his light are able to sovel, are able to hold space for all experiences simultaneously. What's the problem though? Read the words of the Medrash. Ra'a she'ein ha'oila miskayim. He saw that the world wouldn't be able to last. If Hashem's intention is to create a world, right, and specifically a world as we know of Dira B'Tachtonim, a dwelling place for himself in the lowest of realms, he saw that the world wouldn't be able to last. What does it mean the world? He saw that the recipients of his divine light wouldn't be able to last on their own by themselves if that's the intention in creation. When would it be able to last? If he didn't want to create the world. If he wanted the world to be an extension of the Or Ein Sof, then fine, then it's good. But if the world is going to be a world that is going to be a Oila Miloshin Helem, that the world is going to conceal his light, and we're going to have to what's the word? Fight and struggle with the existence of God, the presence of God, etc. That's how concealing he creates it. So the only way that this can occur is shitaf b'ay midas harachamim. He has to blend with it the feature of compassion, of mercy, of healthy, proper boundaries to be able to create a space and a distinction between past, present, and future.
Ellie,
Yeah.
sorry to. That's why the numerical value of Gevura is 216, which is exactly 3 times Hesed, which is 72, because 3 is really Rachamim. The ultimate Rachamim is Gevura, because it's Hesed 3 times over.
Beautiful.
Hesed is 72, Gevura is 216, and true Rachamim. Why Gevura is true Rachamim? Because it's 3 times Hesed.
A little water, please. Thank you. Yeah, a little water. Thank you. Thank you. Chazak, yes, beautiful. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. What's up? Huh? I'm going to drink a little, I'll give you. One a little bit.
Is there any relationship between the word dam and like Adam and
Yes. Aleph Dam. Alufet Shel Olam. She asked it, Yeah, the first, right? Meaning to say or Aleph could also be an expression for Or Ein Sof, right? For the infinite light, Dafka and Dam. So you also have a certain synthesis between the infinite and the finite in the term Adam as well. That's the Adam is the Alufet Shel Olam, Hashem's mastery over creation. Dam so that's Chesed and Gvura also. So let's see. Ella Pirush Midas Adin. Mashenki b'chinas gvura sheba hachayis me'erin tzov b'izgarus rav mimoid. Al kein memela kesheba b'derech ishtalshlus lamata nas b'chinas adin. Therefore, when that infiniteness doesn't curtail, doesn't withhold that infinity, how is it going to express itself? In hishtalshlus, nas b'chinas din. It becomes to the onlooker, to the observer, this is way too much for me. So that becomes judgmental. That a person that is now, so what are we going to say about ourselves? I'm not befitting. It's not appropriate. I'm not appropriate to be able to receive Hashem's light. Why? Because it's so much and I'm so small. That the reason why we're not able to be receptacles for this benevolence is specifically because it's coming in an insane way, in a chaotic way, in a tikboirus way, in an overpowering way. That's called gvura. In Kabbalah we call it the gvura of Ein Sof. The gvura of Ein Sof is not ultimate withholding. It's the ultimate expression without any boundaries. And because it has no boundaries, we receive it as a midas adin. So we judge ourselves by not being able to receive it. It's almost like the cup saying, I feel so bad for myself that I can't receive this amount of water, the whole entire bottle. He says, what do you mean? You're not a vessel. So it perceives itself as trying to be a vessel, but it's not a vessel for that insane benevolence. So to the world, Hashem created a finite world and is trying to fit this infinite light, this infinite hashpah, in a finite creation. Where do we see this practically? I know we're speaking very lofty right now, but where do you see this practically in the chronology and history of creation? I refer to Pirkei Avos, describing the first 10 generations from Adam to Noach. Right? What does it say there? Anybody? Huh? It speaks about, Eseder is Adam and Noach. What does it say?
Until he came, he got the fire all over him.
Till Avram Avinu came. But what was unique about that time period?
I want to know who Dina's
His daughter? Osnas. Yeah. So, what was unique about that time period is that they lived very long. Okay? Why did they live so long? Because they were still surviving off the embers of divine chesed without any boundaries. That which we're calling in our Mayim Midas Hadin. Okay? Now again, it seems inverse because we're saying, Midas Hadin is Gvura. But we're saying, no. This is the Gvura of chesed. The overpoweringness and the awesomeness of chesed without any vessel. And that's why they lived so long. And that's also why the beginning of creation had an issue with a boundary issue. Right? This was the larceny, and this was we're learning Parshas Noach, yeah? This was the larceny, this was the Hamas, that nobody has anything to themselves. All of this on a Kabbalistic spiritual level is an expression of an overwhelmingness of chesed without any proper gvura. The next generation, by Avram Avinu, who goes the other extreme of gvura with no chesed, to the point that they perceive gvura as chesed. I'm doing you a favor by not lending you salt. No, this is stoim, right? Stoim is the idea of that we're going to learn a lesson from the Tower of Babel and from the no boundaries of Noach. So now we're going to have such rigidity that the moment that you are kind and are nice to somebody else, we're gonna penalize you for that. Okay, this was a reaction and a response to the generation of Noach. But on a spiritual Kabbalistic level, that longevity of life was specifically because it was a chesed without gvura. I'm sorry, it was an or without kalim. It was I know what it says. For the first 10 generations until Avram it was toyu. No, it was. I'm sorry, I'm quoting something else. 2,000 years of toyu, 2,000 years of Torah, and 2,000 years of Yemei Mashiach. So again, the longevity of their yes, 2,000 years. Yeah. When was Avram Avinu born? 2448. Right. So until Avram Avinu came to the world, he was the beginning. He was the beginning of he was the plumbing to get the Torah into the world.
That's our reason?
No, it's Chazal. Yeah.
It seems like we're saying that like true chesed has to exist in Torah, and that I would imagine that
I don't want to say the word true chesed, but if you want that the chesed should reach your recipient, then it needs the boundary and the healthy vessel of what we call gvura. Here he's saying, again, it's confusing because we're used to our colloquial terminology of how we use things, right? So we're like, din means judgment and gvura means discipline. We have to kind of go back to the beginning and say, no, translate the word gvura as in gibor, right? And like brute force, an overpoweringness of chesed. So now we translate the midrash and it says Hashem created the world with midas hadin. But what element of midas hadin? The midas hadin that the world is not able to be a receptacle for that awesome light. So therefore, and again, the world wouldn't be able to withstand it. And again, the proof is Parshas Noach, right? That there was a deluge, right? A flood. That flood is also an expression of chesed, if you will, right? That's the idea of the water. 40 days. Spoke about it last week or 2 weeks ago. So let's see. Therefore, automatically, as a result of no boundaries, as a result of lacking a vessel, it comes into the world, it devolves into the world as midas adin. A person who's not befitting to receive this benevolence is not going to be a proper receptacle because the vitality is coming in such an intense way. Which is not the case by chesed alone, right? That it comes, that the natural chesed, without its gvura counterpart, is coming. Kayla, my love, Kayla, I'm sorry. So therefore, chesed, again, he's not saying the words, but chesed as it has a vessel, chesed in its complete form, without the overwhelmingness of gvura, is able to reach down here. But what's its deficiency? Chesed on its own, without the power of gvura, is that it's a diluted light. It's going to come in a very cold way. Gvura, which is not the case by gvura. Remember, what's gvura, guys? Gvura is like blood, is like the dam. So imagine it's like almost like yeah. In a sense, yeah. But imagine you're saying it's like a hot bath. You can't get in. You want to, but you can't. The gvura is the expression of the vitality that is coming from the hisgabrus, from the bruteness, from the overwhelming power of who? B'chinas zayin malachim, from those 7 chieftains, from those 7 kings. Remember the 7 kings of who? Of Esav. Vehu oilam atoyu. And this is what the pasuk is describing as the world of chaos, the world of disorder, the world of, let's say, even more of a psychological term nowadays, we'll say the world of dysregulation. And that's what we call the 10 spheres, the 10 powers, the 10 faculties of the world of Tayu. We call them what? Malachim. We call them kings. What is a king? A king has a certain dominance and rulership and sovereignty that whatever I say, whatever he says goes. So now, what are we going to say soon? Tikkun is not about kingship. It's about a community. It's about an ensemble. We'll say that the world of Tikkun is like a symphony. That the piano and the violin and they all have to vibe together. But 7 kings are going to say only chesed exists in the sphere of chesed, and only gvura exists in the sphere of gvura. So therefore, there's a certain autonomy, but to a fault. There's no integration in the world of Tayu. And that's part of its chaos. So let's bring it down a little bit to our own personal life. Part of our personal chaos psychologically is because we lack the maturity to integrate. Or let's say the inverse. When we gain the life experience and the maturity to be able to integrate, then I become less chaotic. Or I'm able, not that I become less chaotic, but I'm able to say that chaos has a space. Chaos has an arena. There's a time for chaos to express itself. But it takes tremendous regulation, tremendous alignment, tremendous connection to our deeper selves, because I'm in a mode of tikkun. Masha'ein kein toyu, if we stay married to an abusive midah that says, stay rigidly chesed, or stay rigidly gvura, that's the ultimate chaos for our life. we lack the flexibility and the malleability to allow somebody else or something else into ourselves. So this is why it's described as Esav, or the chieftains of Esav, or the Malachim. V'alpia Kabbalah. So now again, what I just said, the Alter is going to describe. V'alpia Kabbalah, based on Kabbalah, Mivuar, we expound shebechinas hatoyu hu riboy haor umiyut kelim. How does Kabbalah describe these worlds? Now again, I always feel interesting when I use the term worlds, because like where are they? Where's the world of Toyu? Where's the world of Tikkun? We understand that these are levels of consciousness that we are all existing in right now, past, present, and future, all simultaneous. And they are almost like synthesized together in our minds. And we have the choice to be in one reality or the other, I think. So what does it mean, Oilam HaToyu? And again, does it mean chronologically that the world of Toyu came before the world of Tikkun? Well, we're speaking about a time beyond time. So how does that work? So again, let's use the terminology precedence, right? There's a precedence, a prioritization that this comes before that, almost like the fact that you have to be a baby before you can mature into a teenager and then into an adult. Okay? Yeah, but that's already takes a lot of maturity. I agree. But I'm speaking about in the chronology of the world, that the world has to go through a babyishness, which we're going to describe as Oilam HaToyu. I'll use a more sophisticated term of a spiritual immaturity. And the spiritual immaturity is specifically because I not only don't want to let you in, I can't let you in. Because I'm married to this sphera. And I can't get out of that. And Hashem made the world specifically this way. He specifically made it that Esav was born before Yaakov. That your immature, babyish, traumatized self comes before your more mature, integrated level of self. It's part of life. Let's see. How do we define our world of chaos? It's called an abundance of light and a diminished amount of vessels. Okay? My kids are in the room. I'm not going to offend them. Yeah? Hi, Kayla. There's abundant light and not so copious of vessels. Tikkun is the opposite. Tikkun is the maturity, the integration. But what does that take? That takes a very large vessel. And it's unfortunate that most of us, as we grow up into being mature adults, lose our light. But it's part of life. Now again, am I speaking about light like meaning, purpose? No. Light means to say, like, let's say, like energy, okay? And it's part of growing up, but I believe that there's a beauty in the analysis of children that we have to maintain wonder towards this beautiful being. Now, am I going to mimic them? Sometimes I do, right? Sometimes they trigger my chaos and my childlikeness that in this very moment that I must be an adult, and I have to have, again, how do we define adult al pi Kabbalah? No? Riboy kelim. I need more vessels, but what am I right now in my anger, in my frustration, in my chaos? I have riboy or and miut kelim. So even though, yes, I'm 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, however age you are, that you define yourself as an adult, one little thing that happened to you as a kid, or one little thing that happened to you now, triggers whatever happened. What happens now? There's riboy or and miut kelim. I'm in an adult form, but I have too much light and not enough vessels for this very moment.
Why are we calling the chaos and trauma
We're speaking about force, power. Meaning to say that there's, I think that the child has an unstoppable. We have a. Sometimes we have to learn it, and sometimes we have to live it. Yeah. So there's an unstoppable force that is relentless, right? And it's to no fault of their own. It's because of that light. Now, part of that light can be misinterpreted, that it's too much for the vessels. So therefore, I want this candy, this ice cream right now, and I'm not leaving the shop till I get it. Right, Kayla? And I'm going to now make a huge scene, right? I'm going to go on the floor. What is that? Is that not called light? We're speaking about the idea of power, energy. And then the parent says what? The parent is, I don't have enough vessels for this, right? I don't have enough maturity for this, right? What am I supposed to do? So it's part of learning and growing in life. I'm just giving an example between parents and children, but Pirush riboy or. What does he say? Riboy or. Sha'or v'chayus babis gabrus rav. That the light and energy is coming in an overwhelming way. Because all of the 10 spheres of the world of Toyu are coming in an overwhelming, insane way. For example, the feature, the characteristic of kindness is coming with a kindness of no boundaries. All the 10 spheres, all of the 10 faculties of this world of chaos doesn't have the proper vessels to regulate themselves. So they need larger, more intensified vessels. And therefore, what is it missing? It's lacking the power of integration. It's lacking the power of synthesis in order that there should be the feature of chesed and gvura existing together. They don't want to. They want to be on their own. They want to be either to the extreme of chesed or to the extreme of gvura. And now again, I'm reminding everybody, Hashem made it this way. And there's a purpose behind this. That really, this is what creates tikkun. And you think about it in your own life. Whatever, and I'm bringing childhood as an example, but it could be yesterday. But whatever we experience in the past, that is our precedence. That is our bechor. Bechor is not only the firstborn child. It's also the first part of your life. Your bechor is the first part of your life. And relative to the later parts of your life, and it's interesting that this is, the Alter is teaching this to us in around the year 1800, and you dabble a little bit with modern psychology, whatever it is. It's childhood, specifically between the ages of 0 and 5, 0 and 7, and that's it. That's all she wrote. That's for the rest of your life. You're living with that model, with that form of soul. Therefore, they could not tolerate a very good term. They could not tolerate the opposite. They could not tolerate the opposite. And therefore, every single midah was on their own. And this is what it means that Hashem saw that the world could not last. What could not last? The energy of isolation, the loneliness that is created by ego. I'll say that again. The loneliness that is created by ego, because the ego, the malachim of chesed, the melech of chesed, the melech of gvura, that says that this is the only way that the world is able to go, that ego inevitably will create a sense of loneliness. Because I cannot integrate somebody else that is opposite me. And the fact that even though a person seems like they're so one with me, we are all opposite of each other. We may have the same mentality, perspective, but the fact that Hashem created us differently is already the concept of opposite. The ego of the world of Toyu.
It's not necessarily the kli getting bigger.
No, not at No.
It's the sphera nullifying itself.
Tikkun, you're saying?
Yeah. No, you don't need a bigger kli. You need to be able. You have an infinite amount of infinites. They're going the same way, and they're not meeting each other. They can be infinite in just one way.
Yes, but we also have to emphasize that he says it's part of the sacrifice is diminishing your light.
Right. In order for Chesed and Gvura, they have to okay,
yes.
We'll be in the same world together.
Yes.
If not, we're going to break it.
Yes. So Hashem says, So Hashem says, so that's what it says, and therefore they could not tolerate the opposite. And every single midah was on their own. And therefore, at that point, there could not be, no, a famous term, tikkun olam. What's tikkun olam? Tikkun olam. Yeah? Social justice warriors, very good. Yeah? It couldn't happen. But why not? Because Kabbalistically, the world of tikkun could not be created without what we call shviras hakelim, the breaking of the vessels. Uletzorich tikkun olam, in order to facilitate the mending, the healing of the world, hutzrach liyes b'chinas tikkun. There needed to be this world, this consciousness of tikkun. What's tikkun? Haynu b'chinas kavim. We needed a world of lines. What does it mean, a world of lines? Hiskatlus hamidos zeh b'zeh. If you think about it, so we have in Kabbalah two modules, two motifs. One is called igulim, and one is called yosher. Okay, the world of igulim works in a way of like a circle. Once you create the circle, there is nothing that can get inside anymore. So therefore, Kabbalah sees the world of Toyu. We call it Kabbalistically makifim. Makifim means encompassing energies, but better, a spatial way of describing it as a world of circles, in which once you create that concentric sphere, nothing can come in and nothing can come out. Okay? Which is not the case by tikkun. Tikkun is the idea of kavin, lines, vectors, and so you think about it. There's chachma that reaches to bina, that then reaches to das. Those lines are called integration. Chesed is here, gvura is here, and tiferes is here. Netzach, Chod, Yesod, that's all called lines. In general, how many lines are there attaching each sphere to the other? In Kabbalah, it's called Yud Beis Gvulei Alachsein. The 12 Alachsein is diagonal. 12 diagonal lines that are attaching each sphere to each other. Okay, so if you count from Chachma to Bina to Das, so you'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I know I did it with my hand, but I can show it to you. Okay. Interestingly, this represents the connection between the avos, which are represented by the world of Atzilus, and the 12 tribes, which is represented by the world of Bria. And it's the 12 tribes that are actually the integration from the extremeness of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So in general, we say, okay, it's Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, but we all belong to 12 tribes. Why do we need the 12 tribes in the first place? Elekei Avram, Elekei Yitzchak, Elekei Yaakov. Why do we? We're good with that. We have Chesed and Gvura Tiferes. That's beautiful. That's very nice. Because Kabbalistically, everything needs to be integrated in an even lower place. So the intensity and the soul power of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were almost overwhelming or otherworldly relative to what the soul needed to do in this world. When did we get our names? Ve'ele shmois b'nei Yisrael habayim Mitzrayma. Yeah? And what do we say? We don't just say, who went down to Egypt? The children of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It makes sense. No, we're enumerating. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, Gad, Asher. Why are we emphasizing that? Because the only way to go down to Egypt is by removing ourselves from Olam Atzilus and entering into Bria Yetzirah Asiyah. Who is the bridge between the two worlds? That's the Yud Beis Gvulei Alachsein, the 12 I keep forgetting the word. The 12 diagonal lines, which physically are embodied by the 12 tribes. Yeah, it has it there. Very good. Yeshikoya. Beautiful. Vayigash is the first is the first mentioning. Very good.
Yeah, and Yosef said.
Is that today's chitas?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Also. See, we accomplished what we needed to accomplish. Yeah, go ahead.
Yosef said to the tribes that, you guys weren't the one that sent me. Hashem sent me here to uplift this. So to say the same.
Right. And Yosef is, and you'll say Yosef is the go-between between Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov's energy versus the lower ones. Very good. Okay, we'll do a little more. Okay, so now, so now, how are we describing the world of tikkun, the world of integration, the world of fixing? How do we fix anything in the world? Is we have to see ourselves as lines, not as circles. Okay, what is this idea of the line? The line is that the integration of the emotions, one with the other. And this is called abundance of vessels and a diminishment of the light. That I'm actually interested in connecting to you, which is not the case by Olam HaTikun. Sha'or v'chais eino babis gabrus. Now what's going to happen? What happens when you mature and you become a little bit more life experienced? You're able to tame and I don't say the word mute, but tame and harness. Very good. And harness the insanity of the child. Now, again, each one has something that the other one's missing. What's going to happen is that the chesed is not insane and volatile. It's coming in a cold way, calm, cool, and collected. And with this calm, cool, collected behavior, we're able to now integrate the opposites. Our sages say, בפרק ה' דאבייס, להודיע כמה ערך אפיים לפניו, שכל הדרך היו מכעיסים ובאים עד שבא אברהם אבינו חולי. That what? Look how compassionate Hashem is. Look how much ערך אפיים literally means a big nose. Yeah, he's able to breathe a little bit. So that inhalation or exhale, whatever you'd say, was a compassion that these 10 generations were upsetting Hashem until Avraham Avinu came. So what is this feature of Avraham Avinu? As a result of the fact that the midos were not coming in an intensified, overwhelming way anymore, this gave rise to erech apayim, to this patience, v'savlanus, and the ability to breathe in a very constricted space. The adrab, and on the contrary, that the unique feature of Olam HaTikun is that these two opposite faculties of Chesed and Gvura are able to coalesce. For example, like we find in the building of the Beis HaMikdash. What happened by the building of Beis HaMikdash? There was a tremendous joy to no end. To the point that on the day Beis HaMikdash was built, Shlomo HaMelech sings the Song of Songs, which is the ultimate, right? It's the Kodesh HaKadoshim of Torah. That until the Beis HaMikdash was created, there was no day like this, to the point that Shlomo HaMelech, the wisest of all men, is writing this love poem between the soul and Hashem. That the glory of Hashem is filling the house of God. And what happens? That a divine fire is coming from on high. That there's a revelation of the divine presence down here below. So we find that there's a tremendous joy and elation. And in the same perik it says, that something really upset God. Okay? That upon my anger, upon my wrath, where was to me this city? Okay? So again, who's building the Beis HaMikdash? Shlomo HaMelech. So it's upon him that the whole city is named after him. From the day that it was created or was built, what was he so upset? That Shlomo HaMelech took Bas Pari, the daughter of Pari, as a wife. And this really, really upset God. So what do we have from here? And yet, was there a mabul here? No. There was tremendous joy and elation and tremendous frustration and upsetness. Nimtza, why? Shahayu beis havchim yachad. Because now we're living in a world of tikkun. And in a world of tikkun, you can have two opposites to be able to coalesce. Be'esu bizman echad, at one moment, in one time, simultaneously. How so? The haynu aidei sheshitav midas harachamim is specifically because he blended this attribute of compassion, of mercy, which is the ultimate expression of a world of healing, of mending, of fixing, in which we are able to now meld together all of these features together as one. And you think about it in our own life. the way we fix ourselves and the way we fix others. Fix what we fix, yeah? Heal, bring a certain rejuvenated spark is by that compassion. Because if I'm only gvura, chesed, 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 and I don't have that third eye, you'd say, there's something missing there. But why? It's specifically because the light has been tamed, the light has been diminished. There's not as much electricity that the vessel is now able to be copious enough to be able to accept it. Where does the human being's soul come from? To be able to bring this mending, healing, fixing to creation, we come from Olam Atzilus. What is Olam Atzilus? We'll call it the world of Achdus, the world of oneness. And therefore our souls, our consciousness, are including each one in the other. As is explained in Tanya. Masha'ein kena malachim, which is not the case by angels. Their souls emerge and extend from this world of chaos. And therefore they're called angels and not human beings. If you come away from this mimer with one idea, understand that the power of the human is the integration, is the coalescing between opposites, in which a malach cannot do. The camp of Michael, the camp of Gabriel, each one personifies a feature in which they are on their own. The camp of Michael is the energy of love with an overwhelming insanity that has no tolerance for any other way of serving God. Gabriel, and the camp of Gabriel, is only in a way of reverence, fear, trepidation. Sar shel Mayim, Sar shel Eish. One is the master of water, one is the master of fire.
How do the angels tolerate each other then?
You say it every day, 3 times a day. And if you go to shul, you'll hear it 50 times a day. He who creates peace in the heavens. Why do you need peace in heaven? Because there's still a world of tayu that is existing. Again, not tayu in a way of like negative energy or bad, but in a way of a myopic perspective towards life, that this is the only way it can be. And Hashem created people that way. But again, the uniqueness of the human relative to the angel is this power of coalescing. On the other hand, there is something that we're missing, which is that electricity that can combust anything. And from these malachim, stem what Yecheskel prophesies, that the face of the lion is on the right side, and the face of the ox is on the left side.
Sorry, but we don't, though. Sarshal Mayim, Sarshal Eish, we're not able to combine them.
What? Say again.
Fire and water.
Yeah.
In this world, we can't combine them.
What do you mean?
The human, we're saying that the human and the angel are different because the angels are each in their own thing. And
Yes.
humans are so wonderful because we're hybrids.
Yeah.
But we don't.
Actual water and fire?
Yeah.
Of course we do. You have the scientists. You have a pot, and you put water in, and you put heat under. That's the physical feature. But on a spiritual level, again, are we speaking about physical fire and water? Fire and water, again, any time that we speak Kabbalistically, or even in Medrash or whatever it is, Sar shel Mayim, Sar shel Eish, what does it mean? He's the master of water and fire. Of course, yes. But the energy behind fire and water. Meaning to say, fire and water, we are limited in our physical contours of what fire and water is. But fire and water has a soul. So the same thing, a human being's body has a soul. And the fact that the soul leaves the body at some point in life causes the body to then be what? Afar, right? That's it. From dust and earth you come, from dust and earth you go. I mean, it's morbid, but that's what it is. The neshama is what? Is the pnimius of the body, of the guf. It allows for the vibration and energy and electricity of the person to be alive. So the same thing, Mayim and Eish, this is only the physical contours and features of this fire and this water. they are the source, they are the origin of whatever, and I don't know what that is, but whatever the pneumius of the fire and the water is, that gives it its features and energy and vitality and however it's used. But in that world, they are limited to only one or the other. I don't want to do complicated, but I'm saying that at the end of the day, no, there is a certain space of Oisa Shalom Imrev that Hashem creates a fusion even in the higher world. And maybe we'll say that that's what allows that power to then enter into our reality.
And I don't know if you mentioned in Jonathan, it says that they give each other permission.
Yes. Yes.
Like, I imagine like that's the only way the three angels made it the whole way to Abraham's tent.
Umikablin dein min dein. Very good. Yeah. Kaddish, Kaddish, Kaddish. Yeah, beautiful. V'hinei b'nishmas ha'adam amar Hazal. So now, the Gemara says that regarding the composition of a human being's soul, our sages said, Gimel shutfin ba'adam. There are three partners in the creation of the composition of this person. Yeah? It says the mother contributes the red, the father contributes the white, and Hashem contributes the soul. What's white? White is bones. What's red? Red is blood. Each one of the sperm and egg fusion to create a child, to create a baby, that's only the physical contours, the physical expression. But Hashem imbibes and imbues this being with a neshama. Now, the neshama has different features. The energy and vitality of the animal soul within the consciousness of the person, and also the bruteness of animals and birds, are coming from this spiritual location called Pnei Aryeh Pnei Shor, the face of the lion, the face of the ox, perceived in Yecheskel's prophecy. And those powers come from the world of Tayu. And this is what's written. David HaMelech says, that front and back you formed me. From the perspective of tikkun, what are we? We are man. We are human being, in which the purpose of the human being is to come into a world and create an energy of integration, create an energy of healing, create an energy of fixing. But the problem is what gets in the way, or what is the impetus to actually truly changing the world? That we also need to utilize that animalistic tendency. And that energy of the animal fell very low. Very, very, very low. And look what he's saying about me'oid, right? The behema is the me'oid. The behema is the malach hamavis. The me'oid, the toiv me'oid. Masha'in can be mekoidim, which is not the case in their source. Hey me'madrega gavaya yoiser. They're an extremely lofty level. Again, because the world couldn't tolerate that insanity, that chaos, that overwhelming energy, so there needed to be a diminishment of that power, that light. But where does it really come from? From this, from the precedence, from the power of the kings of Esav. That again, Esav physically, biologically comes before Yaakov. So also spiritually, or the spiritual chronology is that Toyu comes before Tikkun. And that's why it's so tempting and tantalizing that darkness is so good in our life. I'm going to say that again for my own self, yeah? We want it, right? There's an attraction to Klippa. Think about this calculation, okay? This is very Tanya 101. We're starting Tanya these days. It's always an amazing thing to begin Tanya from the beginning. If we have a godly soul, if chapter 2 of Tanya is real, okay? That starts. Perek Beis, v'nefesh hashenis b'Yisrael, hichelek lekam imal mamish, right? And the second soul of the Jew is a piece of God, literally. And if we live with this mentality every single moment of our life, what should be the obvious conclusion? If that's the truest part of ourselves. It is. But we think to ourselves that the Or Ein Sof, that the neshama stems from, is so much more powerful than the animal. So the natural conclusion should be that I should never have any taiva in my life other than for God. That should be the natural conclusion. And the Baal Shem Tov said this. Baal Shem Tov said the reason why, and the Baal Shem Tov was speaking about the level of tzaddikim, he says the reason why we eat or drink or acquire anything on the physical level, clothing, shelter, whatever, is because there's a divine spark that the godly soul sees and is lured by and attracted to and needs to now engage with.
I mean, like,
This is how the Baal Shem Tov sees it, yeah.
Tohu is like, it sounds like a marvelous world, you know, like versus Tikkun. I mean, yeah. Does that make sense? Like, if we're saying that the world of chaos is that there's fragmentation and each one sees itself as its own, like, living being, then, like, I hear the breaking in there, but it sounds like a marvelous world. Like, it sounds like colors, like artistry and like
The opposite.
order is
The opposite.
boring,
The
you
opposite.
know?
The opposite. The opposite. The opposite. Black will only be with black and white will only be with white. There is no colors. Tikkun is colors. Tikkun is colors. Tikkun is integration and the seeing the beauty of the opposite. On the contrary, Toyu, it's chaotic specifically because there is no integration. So part of you'd say spiritual maturity is to be able to understand that Hashem, that this is the crux of the Maimer. And this is what I wanted to say before with the premise of thinking that the godly soul is the be-all and end-all of our existence. Hashem said no. There's actually a space of godliness that is deeper, more profound, more intense, higher, whatever term you want to use, in the darkness, in the behema, that supersedes and possibly even eclipses the godliness. And that's why we're so obsessed with it.
Yeah, like, I love every world God made. I mean, in the right time of day. But Tohu is the world that God made. Like, I like that world. You know, and
Right, but Toyu without Tikkun is the world, is the door Hababul and is Stoim. Those are the two very good features or two very good generations that show us what happens when you only stick to one or the other.
right.
Chesed on its own,
I guess
without the discipline of Gvura, is violation. People violate others when there's no appreciation for their own space. And then the opposite, the Gvura without Chesed, is loneliness. So therefore, I don't want anything to do with you. The other one is I want everything to do with you, and to the point that there is no you and there's no me, so let's just integrate. And then the other one is I want nothing to do with you and I stay lonely. Those are the two features of Toyu in our life right now. By the way, we can see it in our life. Whenever there's a chas v'shalom, a violation, physical, mental, emotional, abuse, spiritual, whatever term you want to use, of not appreciating the other person's boundary or space, right? That's ultimately chesed perverted. And then you have the other way, that,
Why? How?
because I want to give to you unconditionally, and the person is not ready for that giving.
So the intention isn't, I'm saying like in terms of like abuse or whatever, the intention isn't the other person or giving even.
You're defining it that way, but the person who can't control themselves will say, "Oh, I was acting in a passionate sense of love." What do we say? What do we say with Shchem and Dina? What does it say there? It's interesting. Those terminologies, chafitza, v'chasheka, udveika, those are used in Tanya and Kabbalah as an expression of the soul to Hashem. So there's a tremendous, and by the way, we know this even in the most practical way, right? Osnas is created from that connection, which is basically Yosef HaTzadik, and you had a lot going there, especially say for Gilgulim. Okay, I don't want to go there, but the idea is practically at the end of the day was who did Chesed and who did Gvura. Shimon and Levi going and killing out the whole town is Chesed or Gvura? It's Chesed. We think of it as Chesed, but they thought of it as Gvura. What are you doing, right? And is it Shchem or Chamor? Shchem, no? Chamor is the father. Yeah, and Shchem violating Dina is Chesed or Gvura. From his vantage point, is the ultimate chesed. I love you, I want you, right? And she's saying no.
Isn't that him saying I want myself? I think he's much more.
So I'm saying that I'm just giving the example of chesed to the extreme is no boundaries. Gvura to the extreme is a rigidity no connection, and no appreciation of her affection. I don't need anybody. Yeah?
Yeah, I guess what I was having a hard time was with the fact that God created it, so it must be good.
That is, yes. It's hard to see, for sure. Ve'ile zois. Ha'ava abba mitzad nefesh abahamis hu lemayla mayla b'chinas b'chol meidecha. And notwithstanding the above, that this power, this energy that fell so low, has been gleaned from an extremely lofty place called the energy of b'chol meidecha, the love of all your everything, shelamayla mi'akli, that is beyond the vessel. Why? It's specifically because it's on a higher level, a more intense degree of love. Shebabi's Gabrus Rav, that it comes from in a place of insanity. That this source of the animal consciousness is coming from this place of Toyu. It's only that it fell so low through the breaking of the vessels. And now our purpose is to untangle the tangled. And it becomes very difficult for us to do this. Why? How do we do this? He says, pray. The meditation, intentionality in davening is actually able to bring so much soothing to the soul that it's able to untangle all of the sparks that fell, in which now we're able to achieve such a tremendous voltage of light, of power, that is going to shock the regular normal system. And this is called ahavta b'chol meidecha, the love with all your everything, with all your might. Like it says, and we quoted this in chapter 6 of Tanya, or maybe 7, I'm sorry, that what? That I was not able to learn unless I ate meat before. Right? The meat of a chapter 7, yeah? The meat of the ox, right? Nimtza shemaychel abasar. So this great sage, who was it? Rava. Rava is milsa de b'dichasa. Rabba. Nimtza shemaychel abasar. So he says, this great sage Rabba. Rabba is what? Rabba bar Nachmani, no? One of the leaders of the generation is saying, I can't learn Torah until I eat meat. Grub. No, because he sees the divine spark of Toyu in the meat. Noisen koyach v'toisves moichin ba'adam. Chevra, this is a carnivore diet right here. That what? He sees an additional power and energy in the brain of the person. Like it says, that wine gladdens the heart of man. It appears and seems that these physical material items are beneath us and they fell so low and are too crass for the soul to engage with. But in truth, our attraction and the allure that we are so obsessed by them, addicted to the physicality, and is because they're part of our life. They're part of our tikkun to make that world of Toyu a little bit more tamed. Kabbalistically, this is called the advantage of light that stems from darkness. Hainu, how do we do this? By meditating in prayer, how every single day and all day I become a chaser of my financial needs. Mazin velechem, physical sustenance, in which, where does that physical sustenance stem from? It is from the vitality of what we call the zodiac, the constellations, the stars, that are dictating and creating an orbiting of energy to the physical world. Our sages say, that there's not even one blade of grass that doesn't have some type of spiritual counterpart, zodiac, constellation, that is causing, that it says it hits this blade of grass and causes it to grow. This is reminiscent of the previous Mayim, right? This was the Alter went through this calculation in Mayim Rabim, that the mazales, these constellations and stars and zodiacs, are coming from the 70 ministers. And these 70 ministers that are sovereign over the 70 nations of the world are deriving their energy and vitality from the Shmarei Eifanim, from the dregs, the dross of the lowest type of angels. And these Ifanim, these lowest type of angels are receiving from Hashem's kingship and power of sovereignty. As it says, your kingship is filling the whole world. But relative to the essence and being of God, what's the meditation in prayer? Is that why am I taking the world so seriously? It is literally a crumb of a crumb. Ein aroich. It is incomparable. It's only a glimmer and a mere ray alone. That's what Rabbi Akiva stated. Which Gemara? I think the end of Masechta Makos. I think. Let's see. Rabbi Akiva. Yeah. That. What does he say? They saw them. They heard the music of Rome, and they were farbringing, and they were like crying. So he said, Rabbi Akiva says, if those who transgress Hashem's will are able to experience such joy in this physical world, to those who fulfill Hashem's will, how much more so? What's he saying? Seems very
What about when someone experiences the opposite?
What?
Like, what if somebody is following Hashem's will and it's not getting them where they want to go, and they're not experiencing?
That's what they're saying. This is literally what they're lamenting. The sages were lamenting that, look, the ones who are transgressing Hashem's will are partying hard. They're doing great for themselves, and us, we don't like anti-Semitism, and we can't do anything about it.
Even like an experience of like living, like close to divinity. Like sometimes people find God through going against His will. Sometimes people follow the right path and be like, I'm not getting where I'm trying to go. I feel farther from
I don't think that you're doing that on purpose. I don't think that a person's doing that with the willful intent to transgress against what Hashem wants. He was not speaking about people who were under the auspices of God's desire. They were saying, look, we're so dedicated to God, and yet there was just a mass slaughter of Jewish people. No, this was said 2,000 years ago, and we could literally say this about 2 weeks ago. Mamish. And they're parting. So obviously there's something deeper here. I don't think that we intentionally want to transgress against Hashem's will in order to come closer to Him. It may happen that it comes through those means, but I don't think there's an intention to do so with joy and gusto. Right. For sure. So let's see what he says. Sheshamhu. What time is it? There's a lot of people here ready to fabring. No, 10:03. Okay. What do we do? Okay, we're finishing these last few lines, and we're gonna. Well, two-part shir is unusual here. Sheshamhu atainug adein kates. Okay, it's a very deep Indian. We'll conclude with this. What does it mean that for those who are transgressing against Hashem's will, it will be this way? To those who fulfill Hashem's will be even more so. What does that mean? Again, practically it seems okay, you're going to party in this world, but you'll burn in the next one. And the Jew who's going to burn in this one will be okay in the next one. That's how you read it. But it's not true. He says that there is a never-ending level of pleasure in which is stemming from God's essence. Like it's written, His glory is upon heaven and earth. That the heaven and the earth that is described in this pasuk is not a reference necessarily to the physical heaven and earth, but rather is a reference to the two ways that Hashem creates creation. What we call memale v'soivev, a permeating, tailored light, and a subconscious hidden light. And nevertheless, those two modes of expression, they are only and merely a glimmer and a ray. Masha'en kin livnei Yisrael am kroivei, which is not the case by the Jewish people, who are his nation, am kroivei, a nation close to him. Again, he's finishing the end of the pasuk. Hoido el eretz v'shamayim, vayarim ken la'amoi. Am kroivei hallelujah, right? What is it? Lebechinas behus v'atzmos yitbarach. He grants, he gifts, or we are extensions or expressions of the essence of being of God. Mizet tislahev nafshei bizgabrus b'chei yaser. From this, the soul will quiver, will quake, with tremendous love and pine in such a deep way, with such a yearning, craving, and longing. Why? Because the calculation that has been made is what? That every single iota of desire for this physical world is all a fraction and a refraction of the ultimate tainug that Hashem has. So what are we really chasing? We're all chasing moments of bliss, but it's not ultimate bliss. Moments of desire, but not ultimate desire. So it's almost like saying there's a reservoir of tainug, a reservoir, the subterranean waters of tainug, and all we're getting is a droplet every time that we have pleasure in the physical world. So Rabbi Akiva is saying, if those who are transgressing are holding in this space of tainug, what level of tainug? You can analyze the tainug and say, yes, you drink and be merry because YOLO, right? You're going to die tomorrow. You only live once. All of that is only a modicum of pleasure, in which it's only an extension, a mamish, a drop. Masha'en kain, those who are fulfilling Hashem's will. Le'oiser etzoyin, it doesn't mean to fulfill Hashem's will. Le'oiser etzoyin means who create Hashem's will. Am kroivai, that we're not only fulfilling God's will, as if we are separate from God. Rather, we are the creators of God's will as a co-creator with God. If we're a co-creator with God, that means that the soul is the reservoir, or holds the reservoir of the ultimate tainug in the world. There is no tainug that can eclipse the tainug of the Jewish soul. 1 second. Wow, why don't we feel it? What I wish, maybe we do. Sometimes. That's what the Alter is saying. We try and daven every single day to try and feel a little bit of piece of this.
There are people who feel this way.
There are, but she's saying, why don't we feel this way? The Alter also agrees. I know you don't feel this way, but I want you to meditate. Tislav nafshe tishuka v'chefetz l'davka.
That's still chasing moments.
No, you're not chasing. No, you're not chasing the moment of pleasure. You're acquiescing to the fact that your soul is the ultimate tainug, is the ultimate source and location of the pleasure. It's not that you're trying to reach anymore. That itself, that mentality, that perception of realizing, wow, I have it all within me. There's nothing that I have to chase. There's nothing that I have to explore anymore. Nothing that I have to discover. It's all here right now. That's the ultimate tainug. That's again, hoidoy al eretz v'shamayim. It's only a hoid. Ve'am kroivei is Yisrael.
Isn't it true though that like if you think about like I don't know the triangle of like hierarchy of needs or whatever, like that we need to have our physical needs met in order to really.
Yes, we're not denying that. And on the contrary, we're emphasizing that. We're just saying, but what eyes do you want to have towards it? If you have the eyes that this physical thing is only a physical thing, then you're right that it's not everlasting. So it will only last the amount of time that I give attention to it. But if you see it as an extension of your life's mission and purpose, which is exactly how the tzaddik envisions the world, then you see this physical item as literally a piece of God. Most of us don't. I'm going to throw this away because we perceive the world as plastic. We perceive relationships as plastic, and therefore it's all new in Hebrew. You say chad pa'amid. How do you say? The disposable, right? So that the disposability of our generation has applied not only to physical items but to emotional items as well. So therefore, yeah, what Rabbi Akiva is saying something so profound. He's saying that they're obsessed with a disposable spirituality.
If we stop talking about like pleasures and like physical pleasures, but just if somebody is lacking in terms of like their physical needs or like is in pain or any of that, then like how do they yeah, we're saying that like the spiritual part is like
The Alter Rebbe is not disagreeing. He's saying, I know I know what you're feeling. I know you're feeling. I know the feeling that you have, which is I don't feel this. So I'm asking you to think about it. He's not saying that you have it. He's saying you have to do the work in order to realize that you have it. So we have a treasure, we have a gift. The question is, are we unearthing that gift and pleasure and treasure to be able to realize that all of the other chasing that we're doing is all covering up the true, what's the opposite of chase? Just the embrace that we have within our own selves. But that requires a certain avoid of unearthing that.
The union of specifically the others building the wealth.
Right? Beautiful. Yeah.
There.
Chaver, we're gonna Mir Hashem next week, God willing. We'll do round 2 of the beer.
Is it not an excuse to sin if we were like, oh, Hashem created us with darkness and Hashem loves the darkness? It's like, okay, so just go and do whatever you want.
Yes.
We're not.
But that's what the sages are asking Rabbi Akiva. Think about what they're saying. The oiser retzonai, right? The oivre retzonai, right? They're transgressing his will. So he's saying, they're living such a good life. Let's just go do that. And let's just go extract the kedusha from that klipa. Yeah, you could. But then you feel bad. It's hard to live that way. It's very rare to live that way. That's why, I mean, the Alter Rebbe describes this. We can get to that level for sure. But most of us are, Baruch Hashem, living with an awareness and a spiritual consciousness that we want more than that, and we want to, and we actually have a love and appreciation for our Creator. It's frustrating, and horrible things happen, and why do bad things happen to good people is our daily question. But again, if you want to go in that direction, Siyata Deshmaya, Hashem will help you. That's what it says. Whatever direction you want to go, Hashem will help you. The question is, can you tolerate that for that amount of time? So, Mirz Hashem, Loi nidach mimenu nidach. Everybody's going to come back at some point. The question is, how much shame, guilt, fear, negativity do we want to succumb to, or try and live with a little bit of appreciation of what we have? Of course.